with my own clients, they look for certain indicators when they want to move. When they want to move, like when would be a good time to move? When would be like maybe a fated moment? And so for that, I tend to look at the fourth house because the fourth house rules the home, the family, the roots, the foundations.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another call. So, today we're going to have another interesting topic, one that I started looking into back in October, so a few months ago. So, with us today, let me, as always, introduce her and then we'll get to the topic. So, with us today is Isabel Guerriera. She is a New Yorker living in Spain who supports her clients in uncovering the exact locations in the world that will resonate with your goals, aspirations, and unique needs. She does this through the powerful fusion of evolutionary astrology and astrocartography. I personally think that it's such an interesting subject, and that's why I wanted to bring her on to the show. So, Isabel, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. How about you?
Great. So, like I said in the introduction, I came across the idea of the astrocartography. I can barely ever say it. I came into the idea like maybe around my birthday in October of last year, because I
Mhm.
remember having a conversation with somebody once, and they're like, "Oh, for my big whatever 50th birthday, I think it was." They're like, "I'm gonna go fly to, I think it was like Indonesia or something, like somewhere, odd, compared to where we were." Because that's where the Astros say that I'm gonna have better luck financially. And I was like, huh. So when my birthday came around this year, I remember that conversation and I started looking into it. But even before we get all excited and jump into this, how did you get into astrology and astrocartography? And because I mean, you are a New Yorker living in Spain, so it's like all these different things. How did you end up where you are?
So that's a great question. So I got into astrology first of all, which is pretty typical because astrology is more broad and whereas astrocartography is more specific. It's more a bit more nichey, I guess you could say. And so I got into astrology around the age, like really into it. Like I was always somewhat into it, but I got more like invested in it when a friend of mine in university in my freshman year, when I was about like 18 or 19, she showed me this horoscope app and I was a bit like skeptical about it because I always kind of liked astrology, but I wasn't like that I didn't know enough about it. And then I started reading the app and it was like really accurate. And then I was just like, okay, I want to learn more about this though. I was like, I want to understand what like these daily reports that they're giving me really come from and like what is this world that exists of astrology? Because I felt like there was something deeper to it, that there was something more to it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just kind of like this. Like when I find something that I'm interested in, I tend to like really go deep. And so I started just really, yeah, like diving into it. I started buying books and going to the library and reading books about astrology. I had a really big library on my campus. I started, yeah, ordering books online. I started like going on YouTube and looking at different interpretations of different like planetary placements and signs by different astrologers out there. And I found the ones that like I felt resonated with me the most. And yeah, then from there, I eventually took a couple of courses down the line. Um, and just, yeah, learned more through various sources, really, just through experience, through all of that. And I got into astrocartography. That's a bit of a different story. I got into astrocartography. Well, what happened was when I was about 21 going on 22, I studied abroad. And I had been abroad before, like I had left the US before, but I had never like been abroad by myself. Like I had never, you know what I mean, like traveling abroad by myself. I had always gone with friends or family. So, I was really excited because I studied in Morocco for I think it was like 3 or 4 months, or like not a full semester, but a bit less. And so um basically, yeah, I studied abroad in Morocco, and yeah, I went there and I realized that like I felt a really, really deep connection to that country. And like something felt like I felt like a very, very deep connection to Morocco. Like I had never felt this before. And I had traveled, like I said, I had traveled to other countries, not like the whole world, but quite a few places.
Right.
And I just felt this pull, and I felt like it felt like very spiritually like renewing and very, very fulfilling. And so put my phone on do not disturb. 1 second. I'm so sorry. Um,
And this is what happens with live recordings.
Yeah. And so because I didn't realize my phone was connected to my iMessage is connected to my computer. And I
That's
always forget
fine.
that I have that. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
And so yeah, I went to Morocco and I felt really, really connected. I felt super connected to the country and the people, and just something about the place resonated with me. And then while I was in Morocco, I went to Spain and I had the same feeling, like a similar feeling. And then a couple years later, I went to Portugal. And keep in mind, the common thread is these countries are all in the same area, right? Like Northwest Africa, Southwestern Europe.
Hmm.
And so I was like, okay, I want to understand why, like on a spiritual level. Like I was like, I really want to understand um, why I'm so drawn to these places. I was like, I really want to understand why that is. And so what I did was like I just started Googling. I started Googling like spiritual reasons for being drawn to a place. And then I like was like started Googling it in terms of in terms of astrology. And that's when I came across the astrocartography. And that opened up Pandora's box.
And
It's
and
a
I
big
love that because that's what I was gonna say. So let's explain to people before I actually kind of get more into it. What exactly do you mean by the astrocartography? Because I think a lot of people haven't even heard about it.
Yes, a lot of I feel like it's finally starting to gain some ground in the mainstream because of TikTok, but yeah, a lot of people don't know what it is. And so what it is basically it was developed in the 70s, like the early 70s. And it was basically theorized by this man from the US named Jim Lewis that you can map your birth chart against a map of the world. And this is in correspondence with something called a relocated chart. So the theory of it is it basically states that in every location in the world, your birth chart will shift in some way. Because you're going to put it as if you were born in that location instead
Ah,
where you were born. So it's like the signs tend to stay the same, like the signs in your birth chart, like your sun sign, moon sign, and all that. But the angles of the birth chart tend to change, which is like the rising sign, the IC, the descendant, and the midheaven. Those are the four birth chart angles, and the planets shift from one house to another. And then a more simple way of explaining it is the lines, the astrocartography lines. And the astrocartography lines show us when a planet or luminary or celestial body is like very close to one of the birth chart angles. So it's like the theory is that it's activating a specific area of life. So for example, let's say you've got like Jupiter conjunct the midheaven, like close to the midheaven angle. That could mean like that it activates the area of your life related to career and like networking and professional like things. And bring opportunities because Jupiter rules abundance and luck and expansion. And so, um, yeah, does that make sense? So basically, yeah, that's more or less what it is. So a simpler way is looking at the planetary lines and then just explaining what that line means, what area of life it's activating, what's the planetary influence on that angle, how is that influencing a certain area of life. And so, yeah, that's basically that's the concept of astrocartography in a nutshell.
Okay. You said that. So it's a relocated chart that so do you put it kind of based on, okay, let's bring it more to a practical sense. I was born in Colombia. So if
Right.
I want to do that, do I say for that chart, if I would have been born in France, that's how you would input it? Like if I was born in France, or does it still show that I'm literally born where I'm born? And then how does that work?
Yeah, well, there's websites like where you could calculate your birth chart like itself, and then there's an option. There's this one that I like because it's free, so it's very like accessible to anybody. It's called Astro-Seek.
Okay.
And if you just like Google, look up Astro-Seek relocated chart, it will do it for you. You'll input all your birth data, and where you were born, and then you click relocated city. And let's say you put like, I don't know, instead of you said you were born in Colombia, right? Let's say
Mm-hmm.
instead of Colombia, you want to put like Lyon, France or something, you would just
Mm-hmm.
put Lyon, comma, France, and then it would show you the relocated chart.
Okay. So that would be like if I was going to move there, like relocate there.
Yeah, but a lot of that, like those vibes, like could even be activated when you travel. Like I say, like, especially even after a few days,
Mm-hmm.
even like one day, like a lot of that could get activated, like even when you travel to that place. That's why it's like relocated chart. So it's like when you travel, you are also relocating, albeit temporarily, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
a kind of relocation, right?
Okay. And that's kind of the idea that I heard for the first time because I remember him telling me, I'm going to travel. It wasn't like I'm going to move. He was like, I'm going to travel to such a place because I think it was the abundance that it was like a better, and maybe that was like that planetary lines that you were talking about.
Maybe it might have been a Jupiter line. It could have been a Jupiter line.
Okay.
Because Jupiter tends to bring like abundance and just a lot of something. It
Right.
expands everything. It makes everything bigger.
Okay.
That's Jupiter because it is also like a huge planet. So yeah.
Right. So even if we want to travel, we can do this. And then we would say like the relocation would be like to the place we want to travel to. And I guess everything shifts because, I mean, obviously, if we're shifting the main focus, I guess everything else shifts. So it's going to always be something movable, or is it always going to be something set?
I mean, yeah, like it just the way that I see it is that like, and just based on working with like lots of clients, is that different parts of the world just tend to activate different parts of ourselves. Especially because like, in the birth chart we've got the 12 houses, right? And each
Mm-hmm.
house is numbered and
Mm-hmm.
rules a different area of life. So let's say you've got lots of planets in your seventh house of relationships. You could have had a very like relationship oriented life. It could have always been about other people. And then if that stellium, which means three or more planets in that house, shifts to the 10th house of career, then your focus in that area of the world could be more on career and less on relationships. And like vice versa, if you switch from the 10th house stellium to a 7th house stellium. And so it's just basically that it activates a different part of you or a different part of your life in general, if that makes sense. Um,
Okay.
and so that's why it's like some places could be more suitable for friendship and community. Some places could feel more suitable for career and
Mm-hmm.
networking. Some places could feel more suitable for, settling down and like setting roots and just like be feeling more like stability. So it really just depends what area of life and what part of you that relocated chart is activating in a new place.
Okay. I have two questions for you. We're going to go with one of them first and then guide to the other one. So if we're talking about, let's say, that example that you gave, and let's say we're obviously in a digital world. Many of us do produce digitally from online, so we can have clients everywhere. If, let's say, we notice that I live in the United States but my chart for some reason says that the abundance would be better, aka France, like the example that we're using. Does
Mhm.
that mean, for example, that somebody can be like, okay, maybe I can focus on having more clients in France online? Like, would that be able to help it? Or does the person actually have to move there for that abundance to kick in?
Yeah, no, totally. That's a great question, actually. I've actually gotten that question a lot. And you can activate that. Like if you know that that part of the world activates that, like that part of you or that area of life, or is like indicating that that's like a thing, you can definitely, if you know, if you're not really able to go there physically long term, vi first of all, visiting can activate that a lot. And like
Okay.
networking with people from there, whether online or in person, can also activate that. But like in terms of like the feeling, like for example, you know, in terms of feeling really connected to a place, like let's say you want to go to a place where you feel really connected to, in that case, I would say like actually being there is like really needed. So it depends, like, you know, I've heard of people, like I've had clients meet potential like partners or just people they've fallen in love with like on a Venus line. Like that's very common. But they didn't have to live there. They just went there or that person happened to be from there. So it is
Okay.
definitely a thing. It's definitely a possibility. It's possible, yes.
That's super interesting, even what you just said, that the person could just be from there, but none of you are there. So originally, let's say they were from France. I keep using France, but they're from, I'm gonna look up why I keep thinking of France. So let's say that, that they meet a person from France and they meet them anywhere else. The actual fact that they met and that they're from there kicks up the energy for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I've seen it with my own clients, honestly. I
Okay.
have
That's super
definitely
interesting.
seen this. Um, I like I said, like it could definitely like they're just like when there's that kind of connection, like and then on an astrological level, we definitely do tend to see things like that happening. Or just like even a calling, be like someone may be like, okay, like I feel like I could get more clients in this location, and then they have me look at their astrocartography or whatever, they look at it themselves, and lo and behold, it's like there's an indicator. There's an indicator
Okay.
there.
Oh,
Um,
that's super interesting. Okay, and the other question I have for you was, we're literally talking about the world.
yeah.
What if can you quote unquote relocate it to a specific just one side of the world? Example. So let's say I'm right now in Colombia. I was born in
Hmm.
Colombia, raised in the States, like I live in the States, but I'm currently in Colombia. My show obviously is worldwide, and every business that I do is online, so it's worldwide. But if I notice, can I generate it to like, okay, let's say, let's just put this astrocartography on this hemisphere of the world, like North and South America? Or when we do that, is it literally always on top of the entire world? Does that make sense?
I'm a bit confused. What do you mean exactly?
So, for example, when we're doing the astrocartography,
Hmm.
it's based on the entire world, right? Like where in
Yes.
the world, okay, is there a way to do it just on one side of the world? Like, let's say I want to stay in the States, but I want to see where in the States
Oh,
it would be
oh,
better.
of course, you would just because we there's at like map softwares like astro map softwares that I use and that people astrocartographers use, and you could zoom in like to any specific part of the world and see like the energies present there for you or just for anyone.
Okay.
And then the relocated chart is even more specific because you're literally just choosing like one specific city, country, town, whatever. So yeah, it is actually quite it is actually more how you're saying, more specific. Not that you
Okay.
have to like look around the whole world and yeah, like and I find that a lot of my clients tend to have an idea in mind of
Mm-hmm.
the locations that they would consider. It's
Mm-hmm.
very rare that I find someone who has no idea where they want to
Mm-hmm.
go or what they're looking for. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I know that there's a lot of people, and that's like I grew up in the States, and that's why I'm saying the States, because I know there's a lot of people that they're like, oh, I'll go travel to Europe or Africa or here or there, but I wouldn't live anywhere but this country. Like, just in general. And that's why I was asking, because if it's like, okay, if I need to relocate, but I want to stay within a country, can I do this? So that's a great thing to just look at. So now let's take it a step back. So because this is based also on astrology, let's talk about astrology.
Yeah.
So I am one that loves horoscopes, loves all of that, like of course, always have. And as much as I try to read it and learn it and get into it, it doesn't stay in my head. For some reason, it is not my game. It is not my thing. I cannot freaking remember what planet represents what. I can't. But my question to you is, I remember talking to an astrologer once, and he and I were just conversing, and I told him that I love Greek mythology. And he's like, if you already understand Greek mythology, you already understand some of the astrology and the story and the planets. And am I remembering that conversation correct? Is there some kind of connection with the mythology and the actual astrology the way that you know it?
Yeah, like for I could give an example. Like for example, the planet Mercury, right, in astrology, represents communication and the mind and how we think.
Okay.
In Greek mythology, um Mercury is connected to like
Hermes.
Hermes. I
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can't say that word. Um,
Hermes.
and who was Hermes? He was the messenger, right?
Right.
So there is a connection. That's
Oh,
just one
okay.
example. And then Venus was the goddess of
Mm-hmm.
love, and Venus rules love and beauty, harmony, relationships, for example. And so yeah, those are just yeah, two examples. And then there's Chiron, um, which is also from Greek mythology. It was a I believe he was a centaur who represents the wounded healer, and
Oh.
he was able to heal everyone except for himself. Like he was kind of, like the filling up everybody else's cup except your own type thing,
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of story,
Mm-hmm.
mythologically speaking. um
Okay.
and so that 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 comes from Greek mythology. Like that story of Chiron comes from Greek mythology, and Chiron in astrology is an asteroid that where it's placed in our chart shows where we've faced very like deep emotional wounds and perhaps trauma. And so there is a lot of connection to Greek mythology, and also there's a whole branch of astrology that originated in ancient Greece, I believe. Yeah, the Hellenistic astrology, which is what most of Western astrology is based on, comes from ancient Greece. Um, because it kind of split, like there's the Vedic astrology, which is from
Mm-hmm.
like India, like South Asia. Um,
Mm-hmm.
then the Western astrology um is more influenced by like Egypt and Greece, um, and cultures like closer to the Mediterranean, if that makes sense. Um,
Right.
and so there is like overlap for sure. I think
Okay.
it really evolved from that, honestly.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned it because oh God, I can't remember what episode or season it was, but a few episodes ago, I
Hmm.
had somebody that we were talking about astrology, and her and I really went down the rabbit hole, and like because she also was looking at astrology not just from the Hellenistic and the Vedic, but she was also mentioning, I can't remember the name of it, but she was also mentioning that there was like another way to look at it, and it's coming more mainstream as well. And it was just super interesting to see how, and now this is just me talking now. I love us humans, but us petty human little humanness are still trying
Yeah.
to understand the stars, and they're just doing their thing and their energy. And that's the part of spirituality and energy that I love having these conversations, because it's even just connecting and understanding with what's happening outside of us, like that whole macro micro status. What's happening outside is happening inside, and what's happening up is happening down. And that's the part that I love to astrology. It's like if we could understand, okay, it's not me and my humanness going crazy. And it's not blaming the planets either, but it's understanding, oh, maybe we're affected this way, or we have this or that because of that. That's one of the reasons that I think astrology is so great. Now, on that run, is there any example that you can give us that you've seen something like, okay, the astrology chart said this, and the person had this change or this awakening? Like, how does it change a person to understand what their astrology is trying to say?
Well, for that, we tend to look at something called the transits.
Okay.
Um, and the transits show where the planets are act like which house that they're transiting, that they're moving into at a given time. So when a planet transits a house, it's like tends to be activating an area of life, and it kind of tints it in a way, if that makes sense. So like let's say you've got like moon transiting the second house. The second house is the house of like money, material possessions, self-worth, and resources. And so when we've got like if the moon is transiting the second house, we could, and the moon in astrology rules our emotional needs, we could find that a person feels like a deep need like for like either emotional security or financial stability. We can find a lot of that. The house that Pluto is transiting, because it's a very long-term transit, tends to show where we're going to experience transformations over the next like 15 to 20 years,
Yeah.
um, because it's a very long-term transit. And so, with my own clients, they look for certain indicators when they want to move. When they want to move, like when would be a good time to move? When would be like maybe a fated moment? And so for that, I tend to look at the fourth house, because the fourth house rules the home, the family, the roots, the foundations. So if there's something indicating maybe a disruption or a shift, such as like Uranus transiting the fourth or something like that, or even especially Pluto transiting the fourth, um, I would say like, yeah, this could be an indicator of a time where you could be making a move. Um,
Okay.
so that this is getting into like predictive astrology, but
Mm-hmm.
I really do find that like, yeah, when working with clients, like during certain, especially during like certain like full moons or eclipses, and I see the area that of life that the sun or the moon is like activating at that time, it really tends to be pretty accurate. Like other, yeah.
Tell me more about that because I have never heard of like the full moon or the new moon or something like that, like affecting it. Is it like the day that you're doing it, or explain to me that one? I've never heard of.
Like for example, if there's a full moon, right? This is like the full moons are kind of like culminations. It's kind of
Okay.
like it's like releasing. It's like
Uh-huh.
right, it's the end of a cycle. And then the new moon is the beginning of a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's a full moon, we like to look at where that moon like is transiting in the person's chart, because that's gonna be an area of life where there could be some clo getting where they could be getting some closure, or they could be kind of turning to ending the chapter and turning to a new one, if
Okay,
that.
and where do you see the full moon? Is it when you know there's a full example? Let's say we know the next full moon is in 3 weeks. So do you look at the astrology 3 weeks from now, or is the full moon now, or where do you see the
You
full?
could, I mean, you could see it for years from now. You
Okay.
you could see it for years from now. You could see it if you go to a transit chart calculator,
Hmm.
you can see where the moon is transiting in a person's chart or your own chart. Um, and so for example, this what is it, the 12th, Saturday, there's a full moon in Libra. So if you look at your chart and you look at which house is ruled by Libra, that's going to be the area of life where you might be having more closure, kind of realizations. Um, you might be kind of closing one chapter, entering another type of feeling. And so yeah, you can look at, does that make sense? You could look at the full, like you could know where it's going to be transiting, even
Okay.
years from now.
Right. No, so I get it to 50%. The other 50% of me is still like, but there's a full moon every month. So it's like if it's transiting, let's say in that example, if it's full moons transiting or full moon happening in Libra coming up, does it mean that whatever my chart is in Libra is coming to a closure for this time being, and then next month it's going to be something different because we keep changing?
Yeah, because well, right now the moon is in Libra, and then the
Okay.
following month it would be in another sign.
Okay.
And then it would activate the area of your chart represented by that sign, the house in your chart represented by that sign. So let's say in another month it's Taurus. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to look at where is Taurus ruling in your chart.
That's super interesting. It's like I know what you're talking about, but at the same time, it's never clicked.
I think visually, I think you might be a
Uh-huh.
visual
I
learner.
am.
It sounds like the way you're explaining it, it sounds
Yeah.
like you are. I kind of am too. So I can, yeah, like I can show you like a chart, and so you could see what I mean. If even if you want me to show you one now, I think I can if you want to see, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Let me give you, oh, let me see if I can give you access to. Actually, you need to request it from me, I think, because since we're recording and I have my whole setup here.
It says host isn't allowing multiple presenter sharing.
Hmm.
Or if you just pull up, if you Google birth chart and share it, I can explain it.
Okay, let's see. Give me
Just
one
yeah, you could just
second.
Google like any random birth chart of some random person. It doesn't even have to be yours.
Oh no, I'd rather do mine.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually trying to see if I can give you access because my whole setup here, I don't want to keep moving it before it falls over. Give me just one moment. Let me just figure this out. Why won't? Oh, okay, we're gonna put the recording on pause. Okay, so for the audience, we weren't able to share the screen and my settings are all screwed up, but she pulled it off her phone. So, okay.
It's a little bright. Sorry. Can you
Okay.
see it?
I can
Okay.
see some of it as long as you can see it and tell me. Because I can
Let
feel it
me.
because that one's mine. So I can probably feel what you're gonna tell me, but
So, okay. You see how over here there's like this orange symbol? That's Libra. That's
okay.
that's the symbol of Libra. And Libra rules over your 10th house. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So because you've got rising in Capricorn, so it goes in order from the sign. So it's like Capricorn 1, Aquarius 2, Pisces 3, Aries 4. We actually have the same house order because we're both Capricorn risings. We both have the same
Okay.
rising.
Oh,
Really interesting.
cool.
But your 10th house, so yeah, your 10th house is ruled by Libra. And so the moon is going to be transiting your 10th house on the day of the full moon. So you could be experiencing some shifts. I'm not saying necessarily endings, but some shifts, and
Mm-hmm.
particularly like in relation to relationships, but around your career and networking. Like there could be some changes, like maybe in the people you work with, maybe in your dynamic of work, but
Okay.
something in your career, there's like a shift approaching. There and you or it might not even necessarily be a shift, but like a need for a change. It could be
Okay.
the moon rules our needs. It could be like a desire, a need for a change. I don't know if that resonates right now.
Oh, trust me, this whole year has been like that. So for it to be because I understand like so when I work, let's say like with the moon and stuff like that, a full moon is the release and the closure and everything that you said. So when you're talking about that in relationships and like stuff like that, I can see that I am changing the way I'm working with relationships, even in work and the talk show and the things that I do as a business consultant. Things are shifting, but they've been shifting for a while. But yeah, lately I've been feeling it more grounding, that shift. So yeah, I can totally see that. But okay, I
Yeah,
had
like
never noticed that.
it might feel like you could have felt like maybe you were like in the process of that shift, but
Mm-hmm.
now it's like you kind of know where you want to go with it, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like it's kind of like getting to the point of completion. Like, okay, I've made
Mm-hmm.
the move. I've made that shift. Like it's settling in. I don't know if that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 no,
yeah.
totally. Okay, so that's super interesting because see, and again, that's why I like us having all these conversations because
Yeah.
even though I have astrology, I've known about astrology, but like I said before, it's like I hear it and I remember it for a few days and then it goes out my head first. I don't stick with the memory, but I had never done like I'll work with the moon during the months, but I had never actually said, "Oh, what is it closing this time?" I don't know. For some reason, I never really looked into that. So that's super interesting. And then every month, all of us, because this was the example we gave with mine, but every month, all of us, the moons are also affecting us in the house that it's showing up in astrology. Then.
Yeah, I mean, like the transits are constant. Like there's always planets, celestial bodies, luminaries. Like they're always transiting some area of the chart. So it's a huge reason why, like from one day to another, sometimes you could feel so different. You could
Mm-hmm.
really like Mercury just got out of retrograde and like
Mm-hmm.
I feel it. Like I swear. Like I didn't even kind of like I knew it, but I didn't like realize because I'm an
Mm-hmm.
astrologer, so I know all the dates in my head, but I sometimes I forget what day it even is.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm like working all the time and I'm like always busy. So I was like, why was I feeling so horrible in the beginning of the week and not anymore? And then I realized like, oh my God, Mercury got out of retrograde. I was like, that's gotta be it.
Okay. Let me ask you, does it affect? Because I know in astrology, like when we do the birth chart and stuff like that, we usually give the time that we were born.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. That's like
R-
imperative. Yeah.
Right. So then, which leads to my question, even during the day, because you just said like during the week, we sometimes feel different, but even during the day, and here's my honest, vulnerable, authentic question at this point. There are times that I feel like, is it me that I'm going older and I'm going crazy? That sometimes I feel like so different in the morning and nothing major could have happened. And then by the afternoon, it's like I completely forgot I was feeling that way and I'm feeling totally different. So do the stars and the planets and the luminary, does it move so much within the same 24 hours that it could affect us like that? Or no?
The inner planets, so like the sun,
Oh, now
moon.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Huh.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Yeah, right. To
Morning.
feel
Yes,
it
the
in
morning.
within the same 24 hours.
Oh, yes. Yes, I remember the question now. I hate when I get distracted and I'm like, what was I saying? But yes, the inner planets, yes. The inner planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. Um, yes, because those move more quickly, especially the Moon and Mercury. Um,
Okay.
they move more quickly. They move more quickly than the other planets. But the outer planets are much slower, like Saturn, Neptune,
Got
Pluto.
it.
They're much slower. So, I mean, obviously, all of them are moving and influencing us little by little, but the inner planets are what we tend to, I think, feel more within because they move more frequently. So the
Okay.
changes are more frequent.
Right. Okay. That's super interesting because yeah, there's times that it happens to me and I'm like, is it just me going crazy? Like, why was I feeling like so totally another person in this morning? And right now I'm like all, different. Um,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, I mean, like, look, it could be the planets, but it could also be something else. Like, it really depends. Because
mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, I mean, maybe you're not a morning person. Like, I know I'm not some days, but yeah, but that it is possible that it's because of that as well, the planet
Okay.
thing that I
And
was
then I
saying.
have another question for you. So when always you mention it, you always say the word luminaries. So what are the luminaries?
Just the sun and the moon, because they're not
Oh,
really
okay.
planets. So I don't
Okay.
want I don't feel right calling them planets because they're not they're not.
Right, right. And it's super interesting because I have always been connected, like we were just talking about the moon and stuff like that. I have always been connected intuitively um to like the changes of the moon because I know that there were nights that I would not sleep. Like I could not sleep for the heck of it. And when I learned about like how the moon affects you and full moon and stuff like that, I started keeping a track of it. And one day I actually went to like my little list of the days I couldn't sleep. I was like, oh my God, they were all full moons.
Yeah, full moons are very disruptive with sleep. Like I'm myself, I'm very like affected by them. It's very
And does
difficult to
that
sleep.
change though? Or are we always? Because now that used to happen to me, and now sometimes I don't feel it. So does that change, or do we change?
I I think I don't know, but I just know that it has a tendency to affect people's sleep. It has a tendency.
Right. Well, I mean, it's what I tell everybody. I mean, we have scientific proof that
Yeah.
the moon moves the tides of water, and our bodies are 70% water. So it's like, of course, it's gonna affect us. Like, it's not us being woo woo and crazy and oh my God, you believe in the moon. It's okay. The moon can cause the low tide and the high tide. Why do we think it won't cause a change in our body? It's
Yeah, and I mean
obvious,
like whole like calendars have been made from the moon like
right?
I think like the Islamic calendar like is based on the moon. I mean, I hope people could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's true.
Right.
So it's very, very symbolic and very important, the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there is this theme of connection and inner knowing,
Mm-hmm.
inner connection with the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm near a moon line in Spain, and that's that line that I was saying before that crosses through the three countries.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that like connectedness here, like that
So
really
is the moon line there for you based on your chart, or is the moon
based
line
on my
there?
chart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, based on my
Okay.
chart. So everyone's astrocartography is no two birth charts are identical.
Right.
Um
That's
so
super interesting. Okay.
yeah, no two
And
birth charts are identical. Like we could have similar placements. Like we can both have the same ascendant, like we do, or the same rising
mm-hmm.
sign, but we can have the same sun sign, the same moon sign. But to have the exact identical birth chart is like I think
Mm-hmm.
it can only happen every 29,000 years or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I was reading about that. Yeah.
So
So
even twins that are born not that
nope,
far
not the
from
same.
each other because of the
Not the same.
time, right? They already moved, like the stars and stuff
Yeah,
moved.
yeah. I mean, theirs are gonna be very close, but there's
Mm-hmm.
often something different.
Yeah, that is super interesting. I love all these things and I love what you're doing. So I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to thank you because the whole idea of understanding this even better and more, and for people to realize that there's another way that we can use astrology to help our lives and what you're doing of helping your clients discover like where the important parts are. And if we can activate those things, and like we mentioned on the call, you don't even have to move there, just travel or visit or maybe get into that culture, meet somebody from there can help us activate our own energy. I think all
Yeah.
of that's amazing, completely amazing. So, Isabel, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people reach out to you? I'll go ahead and put it on the description in the show notes, but what's the best place for them to reach out so that you can help them with like, okay, literally where in the world is better for their energy?
Yeah, I would say either Instagram, my page, Your Stellar Truth is my handle. I'm on there a lot. I post a lot of my content there. Connect with clients there a lot. And if you don't have social media, which I don't blame you if you don't, because it's annoying. I have a website called www.yourstellartruthastrology.com. And there is a contact form, and you can book services with me on there as well. It's linked to my Calendly. And yeah, I would
Perfect.
say those are the best ways to reach me, either Instagram or my website. And I also do write a free weekly newsletter with weekly forecasts, like astrological
Nice.
forecasts, and business updates and stuff. So that's on Substack. It's called the Practical Astrology Newsletter. I could give you the link so you could share it with
Yeah,
everybody.
I'll be happy to put that here because again, like the more info, the more everything, and for them to reach out to you because truly, I mean, I don't mean this in the wrong way, but all the help that we can each get and like
Oh
help
yeah.
our lives improve, why not? Like, I think that's great. So, Isabel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Angelica.
All
Angelica.
right. All right. We'll talk soon, everybody. Bye bye.
Hi.
Thank you for watching until the end. My question to you is, what is the one thing that you have learned from today's video that you can apply exactly today? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and go catch our next video.